everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our presentation today. We have got a good presentation called Let Them Lead, the Case for Risky Play. We're going to explore how encouraging children to engage in safe, adventurous play can boost their physical, cognitive, and emotional development. You'll also learn practical strategies to create environments that promote healthy risk-taking and help children build confidence, resilience, and problem-solving skills. We all want that for our kids, right? Our presenter today is Meg Feny, an early education specialist at the Family Conservancy with over 15 years of training experience. Meg holds a master's degree in child development with a specialization in infancy from the Erickson Institute and is especially passionate about infant and toddlers development. Outside of work, she enjoys traveling with her husband and her 3 children. So please help me welcome Meg Feny.
Hi guys, thank you. Thanks for having me. Just so you know, I can't see anyone, Bree, so that's okay if that's the format we're going to use, but if anyone is raising your hand or trying to gesture to me, I won't be able to see it. Does that sound right to you?
Yep, that's what it's supposed to be.
That's supposed to be. Okay, got it. Well, thank you guys for having me. Welcome today. We're talking about something that I'm really passionate about. This is one of my favorite trainings or presentations to give. So I'm going to dive right in so that we have time to get through all this fun material. Let me try sharing my PowerPoint. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yep, looks good.
All right. So let them lead, the case for risky play. Let's dive in. I like to start with this quote. Think of playtime like an innovation lab where tomorrow's civilization is being actively designed. We know children learn through play, and I just really like this quote because it promotes the idea of it being active. When kids are busy, engaged in play and interacting with their environment, we're making more brain connections, and we're really setting the stage for what kind of future we're going to have, right? What the children are learning is going to it's going to influence what kind of world we have in the future. So we're going to start with that. I want to talk a little bit about a piece of that play called risky play. So what is risky play? If you have an answer that you want to shout out, go ahead. Does anybody know what I mean by risky play? And I don't see the chat right now. So Bree, I'll let you help me if you see anything.
Yes. I'll unmute you guys and then you guys can.
There we go. I just got the chat up too. All right. Well, I'm going to give you the official definition here. Risky play is any play that is thrilling or exciting and involves some risk of injury. So I like to think of it as things that grown-ups say no to, right? So climbing trees, playing with big sticks, cooking, using real gardening tools, things like that. That's what we mean by risky play. Jumping off of play sets, swinging too high, any kind of play that could cause or involve some sort of risk of injury. Now, real quick, I do need to say that risky play is not hazardous play. A hazard is something a child does not see. So if you have gardening tools laying in your backyard and the grass is tall because you need to mow and the child can't see it, that is a hazard, right? Something that they could trip on, they could get hurt because they don't see it. On the flip side, a risk is a challenge that a child can see, and then they get to decide if they want to engage with it or not. So if I had those gardening tools out in the open on a table with dirt, sand, other things that they could engage and play with, the child can see it, can choose if they want to interact with it. That is what we would call risky play. But I do want to note that I think eliminating risk leads to a child's inability to assess danger. And I don't just see that, I have research to back it up. If we take away all the risks out of a child's environment, how are they going to learn what they can and can't do and how to assess a risky situation? So we'll talk about that more in a minute. Today, I want to talk about the benefits of risky play with you, and I want to list ways that you can promote risky play with the families that you work with or with the children you work with or children that are in your own lives. Okay, so that brings me to my next slide here, but And I just want to say, yes, I know kids could get hurt. If they're not your children, are the other parents going to be upset? I'm too anxious. I don't think I can watch children engage in risky play like that. Or I know a child who could not handle something like that. They would just take it way too far and get hurt. And am I going to get sued? Right? There's a lot of buts for letting children engage in risky play. So I just want to point out that I hear that, and I agree, and I'm with you there. But let's put this aside for a minute, because first I want to talk about risky play, and we'll come back to that. Okay, so this idea of risky play isn't something fun that I've just thought of on my own. This is actually a researched and a very studied concept and idea. And risky play is actually divided into 6 categories. So there's lots of examples you guys can read on your screens. I'm not going to go through each one of them. But just so you know, risky play is divided into these areas. Play from great heights, playing at high speed, if you're using dangerous tools, which would include cooking, if you're playing near water or fire on the edge of a cliff, dangerous elements, if the play is rough and tumble, like we're wrestling or children could harm each other, or play that would create a situation where a child could disappear or get lost is considered risky as well. So playing alone, going out on your own, or in unfamiliar environments. So these are our 6 categories of risky play. And it is, like I said, a research topic that we actually have a lot of information on. What risky play is not is this. It's not controlling the child's level of risk. So if we're outside and I say, okay, you can climb the tree, but you can only go this high, that's not really risky play because it's not letting the child choose what they want to do, assess their situation and make a decision. But it's also not pushing them beyond their comfort level. So if you have a child who's climbing and you say, come on, one more, you can do it, just get a little bit higher. Come on, you can do it. That isn't risk either, because the idea is to let the child assess their own danger, their own risk, and then make their own choice about it. Risky play is not abandoning your children, letting them do whatever they want, or just ignoring them. So if anyone says that Meg said you could just go to the playground and just let kids go crazy and just go somewhere else, that's not true. Obviously, we need to be supervising while children are engaged in this play. And as adults, we need to step in if a child is doing something that's not safe. Okay, but man, oh man, the benefits of risky play. And here's where I want to spend a minute talking to you guys. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to interrupt or put it in the chat, because this is really the good stuff here. So the benefits of risky play. First, we have it allows for risk assessment. When children are engaged in risky play, they're learning how to judge risks and their consequences. So they're learning what is safe to try, what might not be safe to try. They're getting a chance to kind of practice that risk assessment skill, and then they can use it in other situations as well. Psychologists have shown that children who engage in risky play are actually less likely to become injured because they're more adept at observing their surroundings and making good decisions. So I like to think about this from my new perspective, which is the mother of teenagers. I would much rather my child have experience engaging in risky play and assessing their own risk and what they can and can't do when they're younger, so they have lots of practice of that before they get to become teenagers or even adults, right? I think that's a huge piece of childhood that children need. The second box there is emotional regulation. When kids engage in risky play, they can sometimes have to confront some negative emotions, right? They might be angry about something, they might be fearful, scared of a situation, and engaging in this through play is a way for them to learn how to handle those emotions, how to manage them without melting down or lashing out. The third box there is that it builds self-esteem and confidence. I mean, when you decide that you want to jump off the play set and you do it, and man, does that make you feel good about yourself? It boosts a child's self-esteem and understands and lets the child understand what they can or can't do in certain situations. So the child is going to feel more confident taking risks in the future, or more confident being okay saying, no, that's not a risk I want to take. They're more in control of their actions and learn how to deal with the situations that may make them feel uncomfortable. The fourth one there is that risky play is child-led and it lets them take the initiative. The best kind of risky play is one that the child himself initiates, whether it's climbing a little bit farther or swinging a little bit higher. Letting the child set their own goal is important because, first of all, what we just talked about, the self-confidence, the risk assessment, but it also lets children know that they can set their own goals about what they want to do and that they don't always have to look to a grown up, right? They can come up with their own play and they're kind of in charge of their play. Risky play also benefits problem solving and creativity. So a lot of times when you are engaged in risky play, you have to make a last minute decision under pressure. And being able to do that is a skill that's useful even when a situation may not be as stressful or as last minute. Just making those quick decisions and coming up with a creative solution is huge. Not all risky play has to involve physical movements and big gross motor play, but it can. And when it does, that's even better, right? Kids are moving, they're using their bodies, working their muscles, getting some active play, some physical movement in, and it's teaching children that physical play is fun, right? You can have fun when you're moving. The next box there is the ability to deal with failure. Another one of my favorite benefits of risky play because it's just so vital for when we're older and when we're adults. Risk means things aren't always going to go your way. Sometimes you're going to slip, you're going to trip, you might fall. Sometimes you might be about to do something and then you just flat out chicken out, right? But learning how to deal with that maturely, learning how to handle a mistake or how to handle a situation where maybe you decide you want to back out is a huge piece of just development in general for social emotional needs for being an adult, right? These are skills that we want children to have when they're teenagers and older. It's an important part of the growing up process, and this allows it to happen on their own terms. It also increases social play and learning. I think you guys saw that in the video. Those kids did not know each other at all when they first met, but not very long into their play, they were negotiating, they were setting rules. If you notice, they were even telling each other like, that's not safe, or I don't think you should do that. And that social network was just organically forming, and they were playing together and learning all sorts of useful skills. It also is meaningful when children are engaged in risky play. That means it's something they want to do. We know from brain development research that more connections are made when a child is engaged in something that they are interested in. When it's meaningful to them, you're making more brain connections, and risky play facilitates that. And it also lastly just shows that we trust them, right? We're right there. We're here to support you. We're watching, but I trust you to make a decision and decide what you can and can't do, or what you do or don't want to do. So we're building their confidence that way too, and showing them we trust them. What do you guys think? Any comments or questions on the benefits?
For me, it's the ability to deal with failure.
Yeah.
As a parent, I've been one of those people that have tried to prevent that from happening. And I wish that I would have let more of that happen. I now have a teenager.
So you're
So,
the same.
I think it's a great coping skill.
Right. I think it's an important thing to be able to do, right? We're going to have failures in our life. We need to be able to handle that. Yeah, I agree. I think so. What's so interesting about risky play to me is how just important it is for when you're older. Like these are life skills that we need when we're teenagers and when we're adults, and we're letting them practice. Because I have done that too. I have had too many rules, or I have kept my children from doing something because I was afraid of the risk. But it's important to let them try within reason. Anybody else? All right. Well, let's keep going. The next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about how to let your children engage in risky play. And one thing is to think about the environment. So a lot of times we walk into a situation, whether it be play materials or a playground, a playroom, an environment, and we automatically do a risk assessment and we think, okay, what could go wrong here? Can I let my child play with this? But in reality, I think we need to start doing something called a risk benefit analysis. And when I do this presentation with childcare providers, we have an activity around this where they actually create, they have a handout and they write down this analysis on paper. What they do is they look at the risks, right? What could go wrong? How could my child get hurt? What could happen? What's risky? But then they also list the benefits. The okay, but look at all these great things that could happen or that the child could learn or skills that they could work on if we're able to play either with this material or in this environment. And the last thing they do at the bottom is kind of think of ways that they can manage the risk. Are there things you can do to lower the chance that a child is going to get hurt, but they still get the benefit of engaging in risky play? And so it's really just having a different eye view of a situation where we're not just automatically thinking no. We're weighing the pros and cons and the benefits and the risks. So you have an example here on your screen of playing on a log, climbing, on a big pile of logs. Yes, there are risks. You could get splinters. It could tip over. You could trip on it. But if you look at the management section at the bottom, well, there's things we can do. We can sand it to make sure that there aren't splinters. We can bolt it to the ground, install it so that it's not shaking and that it's stable. That might be something you could do on a dry and sunny day. Maybe I'll say yes when it's a nice day out, but it might be a no. We can't play on that when it's been raining because it's wet. You're more likely to slip, etc. So just kind of keep this in mind the next time that you or a parent is deciding whether or not to let a child do something. Think of the pros along with the cons. Okay, and what else can we do? So to support risky play, there's lots of little ideas that I have here for you that I want to share that are simple that you can do. One, start small. Nobody is saying that you have to go home and give 2-year-olds knives. I am totally with you on that, right? We're not saying you have to do something major that's really, really risky right from the start. Risky play is a spectrum, right? There are things you can do that involve very minimal risk. There's things on the other end of the spectrum that are very risky, like playing with knives or other more dangerous things. And the idea is to find somewhere in the middle where you feel comfortable as the adult and where you think the child, can handle the level of risk. And that can move back and forth too, right? In one area, you might be a little bit lower on end of the spectrum on what you think is okay, but in another situation, maybe we can be a little more risky. Think of it as that. No one's saying you have to right away go big and do something really risky. Start small. Start just bringing in nature. Start letting children play with sticks. Start thinking about the rules you have, and maybe is there a way that you could loosen rules a little bit. Another way to support risky play is to change our mindset. A lot of times when children say, I want to go play in the mud, we think, oh gosh, but then I'm going to have to wash your clothes, or it's going to take a long time to change, and it's going to be really messy, and either I'm going to have a mess to clean up, or I'm going to have to really think ahead. It's just more work. And I agree with that mindset. Yes, it is definitely more work. But I want to remind people that it is also the work as parents, as childcare providers, as grown-ups who work with children. Our goal is to create play experiences for children where they can learn. And so sometimes we think that's just too much work. I don't want to deal with it, when really we need to change our mindset and think, you know what, this is what is best for my child. I'm going to try to make this happen. Sometimes kids just need space. Playrooms might be too crowded, or they don't have outdoor space to go run around and find things to engage in on their own, and they just need space. Another way to support risky play very easily is to just bring natural items into the play. So think about, leaves or flowers, sticks, things that are in nature, loose parts. Save your old recyclables and let children engage and play with those. Here's a big one. Rely on your relationship with children and your knowledge. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, if a stranger walked in right now, or the parent walked in right now, they would wonder, what am I thinking letting a child do this? Don't worry about that. You know the child, you know your environment. You should trust yourself to think, I have thought of the risks and the benefits, the pros and the cons. I know what this child can handle. I'm right here. I'm going to let this happen because I believe it's okay. Another thing that helps support risky play is just trusting the child. Use something called the 17-second rule. And what that means is when you're about to say no, you're about to tell a child to stop doing something, take a second and in your head count to 17 and then decide if you still need to say no, because that is going to give you a little bit of time to see where they're going to go with it, what's going to happen, and then you can make a decision. And then rethink your rules. I always like to reference the rule of no climbing up the slide, right? Why do we have that rule? I could understand if a child is going down the slide, we can't have one going up at the same time. That would be dangerous. But we have lots of rules out there in our play environments on playgrounds that maybe we could stop and look at and think about. Maybe climbing up the slide is okay, because that's a great way for a child to engage in some risky play and have to problem solve. It might be worth it. Let's see, I have some questions here in the chat, I think. Are there local coordinated efforts to encourage schools, childcare to allow some of this, and resources to share with PTAs? So I have some resources that I can share, and maybe after the training or the presentation, we can email those out. As far as coordinated efforts, not really. There are programs that support risky play. There is a group here in Kansas City that has kind of all the props that you saw in the video, like huge truckloads of fun things, and they'll come set up a play area just like what you saw in the video. But as far as like a real coordinated effort to promote this in schools, not really. It's sort of it's individual throughout the community. Okay. One last thing I want to say, a lot of times we think about keeping children as safe as possible, and maybe we need to think about keeping children as safe as necessary, right? We definitely want children to be safe, but we want to provide opportunities for them to engage in a little bit of risk. Okay, so one resource that I would love to send to you, if you would like to have it, is this handout from the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada. And it's called When You Want to Say Be Careful. And it gives you ideas of other questions you can ask, other things you can say to a child before you just say stop. And if you notice, these are divided into those 6 categories we talked about, the categories of risky play. So for example, one of my favorite ones is play with great heights. You can see the bullet points there. The second one says, what's your next move? So instead of saying no, get down, ask the child, what's happening next? Does that branch feel strong and stable? Another one I like is play with harmful tools. What's your plan with that big stick? Or rough and tumble play, make eye contact before you tackle someone. Or checking in, are you still having fun? Are you still having a good time? Do you want to keep doing this, right? Lots of great questions and comments we can make as grown-ups that don't just say no, but we actually are helping children through that risk assessment process kind of organically, right? Getting them to think about the consequences while they're making those quick decisions about what to do next. Do you guys have any comments or anything you want to share on the handout or anything I mentioned about supporting risky play?
I love this handout because it's hard in the moment too. Like it's easiest just to say, stop doing that. Just get down, because
Right.
it's the work that you're gonna have to put in as a parent. But this kind of reshapes the way I would even think about addressing it. Because in the moment you're like, yeah, I don't want you to throw that rock and hit somebody. But instead, if you say, where was it? Before you throw the rock, what do you need to look for?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have the ability to send this to me and then I can send it out to the people that registered?
Yes, I do. I will
I would
email
love that.
here and then you can send it out. Yeah, this is one of my favorite handouts for the same reason. And if you hang it up, in a play space or somewhere where you can see it, quickly when you're in the moment, that helps too. All right, we will get that out to you guys. So now let's go back to the buts, when you hear lots of other grown-ups saying, oh, we can't do that, someone's going to get hurt. How can we talk about this with adults and navigate those conversations about risky play. Okay. 3 hours every day for 10 years. That's a statistic from a research study I want to share with you. What do you guys think it means? 3 hours every day for 10 years. How long kids play. So like how long they need to play or should play. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. 3 hours every day for 10 years actually means that research shows children would have to spend 3 hours every day engaged in risky play for 10 years before they're likely to get an injury that requires medical attention. And that kind of blew my mind when I first read it. But the point is, children are better at assessing their own risk than we give them credit for. So major injuries are not happening with all risky play. We need to give children the benefit of the doubt and let them try. Let them assess the danger, let them decide what their body can and can't do. And really the likelihood of injury is pretty low. So that's one thing that you can tell other adults. Share that statistic. And then having conversations. Well, first of all, we have to remember parents come with different philosophies on play. I know that when my kids were really little, we were always out in the cul-de-sac with the other neighbors with similar age children. And I can tell you that if there were 5 families out there, there were 5 different philosophies on what they could and could not do and how much risk they could take. So we need to remember that parents just come with different philosophies on play, and none is right or wrong or good or bad necessarily, but just different. One thing you can do is have a risk benefit analysis ready to share. If you work in a situation where someone might come question, why are you letting the children play with real hammers? Why are we hammering? That seems dangerous. You might want to have a risk benefit analysis written out. So you can show them, well, I thought about it and I listed the pros and I listed the cons. I thought about how I could manage it. And after, looking over it, I decided that this was worth it, that this was a good activity for my children. And I sort of did my research. So you have that kind of backing you up, saying, I didn't just throw this out here today. I thought about it, and here's why. Sharing pictures or videos. A lot of times parents don't realize what their children can do, or they think something is really risky until they see their child actually doing it and realize that there is a lot of thinking and assessing the situation before just jumping into risk. So sharing any kind of picture or video of their children in risky play is huge. We can educate parents through our newsletters, through posters, through texts, handouts, however you communicate with families, either that you work with or that you know. Sending information about the benefits of risky play is a great way to maybe help them not say no as much. What about you guys? I didn't ask you where you work or where you live. Are there ways that you can promote risky play in your community, or is this something maybe just you yourself as a parent will consider? Or if so, how would you promote risky play?
For me, I think it would just be conversations with my friends, right?
Okay.
That, we all kind of grew up with the same views on what is okay and what's not okay, but to kind of expand their thoughts on that too. Maybe we can let them do XYZ and it might be okay. And that statistic of 3 hours for 10 years is pretty leveraging, right?
Right. Yeah, I know that like I said, that was shocking to me. So yeah, just sharing the information with friends or family, other parents that you know is good. Yeah. You can have lunch and learns on the topic, right?
There you go.
Way to promote it as well.
Do you find that with this tactic of risky play, I mean, people learn differently, right? As adults, there's different ways of learning. This is more of a tactile, hands-on type. Is that primarily how children learn, and then they grow into more of an auditory, a visual, that kind of thing?
Yes, you couldn't have said it better. Children learn through interacting with people and with their environment. So, I mean, worksheets are inappropriate for preschool, toddler, like in early childhood. That's just not how their brains are making connections. Engaging with materials, playing with toys, pretend play, building, talking to grown-ups. This is how they learn. Play is the work of childhood. So we know that when a child is hands-on, engaging in something, um, more brain connections are made. And do you guys know how much of the brain is developed by age 5? Anybody want to take a guess? What percent of your brain is formed by age 5? 90%. Bree, you're close with 80. 90%. So like so much learning is happening in these early years. And I'm actually writing a training right now on the impact of screen time on those connections being made because screen time is taking children from play where they're acting things out or they're building or they're testing or they're taking risk. And so, yes, we need to spread that word that this is how young children are learning is through interaction.
Laurel had a comment. I'm a
Okay.
previous teacher and currently work with schools, but I am looking at ways we can increase risky play for kids in schools. I totally agree with that. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
I think that's awesome. And I think sometimes it's just rethinking your rules. Every time I present this training, I have childcare providers who tell me we're not allowed to climb up the slide. We're not allowed to climb the outside of the play set. You know, everything. There's a lot of really strict rules on how children can interact with the materials. And so sometimes it's just rethinking some of those rules, you know, and bringing in some loose parts play really sparks learning and having that available is just a piece of it. Okay. So I want to end with this quote. Children will play whenever they can, but it's adults who determine if they get the chance. Let them lead, find your yes, because it really is up to us, right? Children are going to play with whatever's available or wherever they can be, but we really need to be providing opportunities for rich play learning experiences as the grown-ups. It's on us. So I hope that, you know, some of these ideas about letting children engage in risky play is resonating in the community, that it's really important for our teenagers and for our grown-ups, you know, to have these experiences so that they're just well-informed, well-adjusted adults. What questions or comments do you guys have?
I feel like I missed the boat with my teenager, like getting this information and she's now 17. But is there any of this risk taking is different when they're at the age of 17, right? As a teenager, is there still ways that I can let them have some of that risky play at this age?
I think so, and I think it's about giving them independence, you know, and um, I think a big piece of it for teenagers is the ability to fail, right? And the ability to handle emotions when you're in kind of make decisions, maybe under stress. And those are things that you can still do, you know, with adults. So it might be letting your child go somewhere that's a little bit vague to you. You might know where they are. I hate to talk about teenagers because I'm definitely not an expert on teenagers, but my point is giving them a little bit of freedom and independence is a little bit risky, right?
Right.
And so you have to know your child and you have to have your own rules and boundaries set. But simple things like ordering their own food at a restaurant, you know, that is risky because that's scary. If you are, you know, 14 and not used to ordering your own food, well, you
Yeah.
know, let's engage in that because it's scary to interact with people. So giving them some responsibility and independence, I think, is one thing you can do with teenagers. And I'm sure that your 17-year-old probably engage in more risk than you realize. You know, you say you feel bad. I doubt it.
I'm sure that she probably does, which is good, you know, because I remember being that age and just the visceral feeling of being able to be independent and how good that felt and to do things that my parents probably have no idea that I did. But look at me, I'm still here, I'm alive. I grew from that.
I
So,
remember that too. I have to tell myself that my parents did not know where I was. And I was a good kid, but there were times that I did not follow the rules or they would have said no to something that I was doing, you know? So I remind myself that that's part of it. You know, I wasn't doing anything super crazy, but yeah, you're right. Um,
Laurel had a comment. It looks like the book, The Anxious Generation, touched on some of this, including things for teenagers. Oh, thanks for that, Laurel. I've heard of this book. I've not read it yet.
so this book, this is a great book. As a mom of teenagers, it was hard for me to read because it tells you a lot of how social media and how technology is impacting the mental health of people and teenagers. But they do have a section in that book where they talk about childhood and how children need to have experiences playing. They need to be off of a device and actually engaged in play and with other people because that's where those life skills come, right? And so the the anxious generation has a ton of research in it, really eye-opening information about the mental health crisis everywhere, about how it affects girls versus boys and what we need to be doing in childhood. So yeah, I recommend that book. And I'm using it to write my training, part of that
Do you have
research.
any other book recommendations?
Yes, let me type it in the chat. So a lot of what I've gotten here is from a book by Rusty Keeler. And there's that quote that I got from you. And let me, it's not sitting in front of me, so I want to make sure that I put the title down right.
Yeah, and we can add these into the email that we send out for you
Okay.
guys to.
Oh my gosh. Of course I've got too many notes. Okay, let me go ahead and put adventures in risky play. That's it.
Okay. This is kind of a like a Montessori school type of um, curriculum. Is that kind of what they lead with is similar to this?
So yeah, Montessori is hands-on and using real things, you know, real objects to play with. Yes. And I guess what I'm talking about today isn't necessarily like a curriculum, more of just, you know, letting kids play. Make sure we're letting children play, more of a mindset or a philosophy that children need chances to take risk.
Okay.
But yeah, I see similarities. Yeah. But yeah, adventures and risky play is geared towards, you know, childhood. So it's going to be about letting children play. Um, it's going to, you know, talk more in depth about those categories. He's the one who came up with the risk benefit analysis form. So lots of great information in there to dig deeper.
Okay. And Meg, where can we find more information from the Family Conservancy?
So you can go to um, the Family Conservancy.org
Okay.
if you want to look at our website. And on your screen right now is my email address. So if you have any other questions or you would like other resources, feel free to email me and I can connect you with the right information.
And if you didn't know, I'm going to tell you, Meg does a guest spot on Channel 4 twice a month, and she's pretty good. I was prepping for this talk, and I had just booked her, and I happened to have the news on one morning. I was like, wait a minute, I know that lady. So it's pretty cute little segments about kid stuff, right? Toys
Yeah.
and learning and play and
Everything. So I'm on the first and third Tuesday of every month, like around 7:45 in the morning on Fox 4, and it's just a parenting segment. So I talk about nutrition, social emotional development, sleeping, you know, a very wide variety of topics, anything under the sun around parenting.
love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Love it. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Anybody have any other questions? Throw them in the chat. And anything else to add, Meg?
I don't think so. Just let me know if you want more resources or if you have any feedback, what you like, what you don't like.
Sure.
Happy to hear it.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Don't forget to go check out the Family Conservancy. Also, check out nkchealth.org for more classes and events. And then go check out our YouTube channel because we have a lot of other educational videos there. Nutrition, parenting, bullying was one we did recently, cancer treatment, all kinds of things. So it just kind of keeps you in the know. So Meg, thanks for sharing your knowledge. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.